If you've ever been curious about what it's like to date and be in relationships sober, I know something that I never really thought about because I am someone who goes on dates and gets a drink for Dutch courage, right? To get that confidence. But I'm excited to be joined today on the Relationship Rehab podcast by Sophia Graniella, and she's going to give us an insight on what it's actually like to date sober. She is on a journey of sobriety right now, and this is what she talks about in this amazing episode. And she also used to have an anxious attachment style. So we talk a lot about that as well, and how alcohol actually hinders us and makes it worse, and how becoming sober can really support us to lean more into that self trust, to be able to set better boundaries, to have more clarity and embodied confidence. She is the podcast host of Her Journey Home. Like I said, this podcast is so wonderful. It's helped me out a lot. So definitely go check it out. But she's also a storyteller and an EFT tapping practitioner devoted to the art of sharing her truth. And she explores sobriety, reclaiming her 30s, and the messy, courageous work of becoming herself. And she's helping so many women do just the same. And her work centers on just this, to help women release fear, reconnect to their voice, and remember that their story holds power. I am so excited for you guys to dive into this episode. Like I said, if you are exploring sobriety or want to, but you're afraid of what dating will actually look like without it, you're going to feel so seen by Sophia. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Relationship Rehab, my loves. And I have such an incredible, amazing guest on today. And I'm so excited to introduce her. If any of you out there is curious about what it will be like to date sober, I know, something that I have never thought of before. So I'm really intrigued by how this conversation is going to inspire me and where it's going to lead. Without further ado, Sophia, welcome to the Relationship Rehab podcast.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction. Oh my goodness. I'm honored to be here with you.
Oh, you're so welcome here. We have been trying to have this conversation for a while, so I am more than excited that it's happening.
Me too. I cannot wait to dive in.
For anyone who's new to you, what do they need to know about you? How would you describe who you are and what you do?
Oh my goodness. Okay. I am Sophia. I'm a multi passionate, multi-dimensional human being. And I have been on the most wild adventure of coming home to myself. And for most of my life, I was the woman, the girl who was too much, too loud, too intense. And I learned to shrink myself for most of my life. I learned that being who I was authentically was unsafe, and it was dangerous for me to actually speak out and use my voice and be who I wanted to be. And with that also came a lot of coping and trying to blend in and be loved and accepted. And I did that through drinking and partying and using substances. And I got really lost on that entire journey for 15 years of my life. And I'm 32 now, but at 29 years old, I had like my big first awakening where I realized that I needed to really change my life. It was a moment when I looked in the mirror and I was a shell of myself. I was just out of a relationship, extremely heartbroken, didn't recognize the woman staring back. I was in a ton of debt, and I was honestly so disconnected from who I was. And it was in that moment that I said, okay, nobody's coming to save me. It's time to really take accountability for my own shit. And I essentially, after that time, started to pour into myself. And I've been on this beautiful journey of self discovery and sobriety. And it has been so beautiful, of course, not without challenges. And yeah, I'm a podcast host and a coach, and here we are.
Wow. So you said that at 29, you had that turning point of, I cannot do this anymore, because I'm sure a lot of us can relate to your story right now of just feeling too much and not loving ourselves and wanting to numb all those overwhelming emotions with alcohol or any other coping mechanisms that allow us to do that. But at 29, something happened. Can we deep dive into that? What happened at 29 for you to say, I cannot do this anymore? I need to take accountability for my shit. I can't be waiting for someone to rescue me. What
Oh,
happened?
yeah. Oh my goodness. So it happened after a really hard breakup, which this is how a lot of us start on our healing journeys. It really became the catalyst for everything that's happened in my life. And what I had realized is that I kept replaying similar patterns in all of my relationships. I was extremely anxiously attached and I felt like I couldn't live without my partners. It was just this like debilitating feeling, and I had a really deep abandonment wound from the relationship I had with my father growing up. And so I just kept getting into these really emotionally abusive, toxic relationships. And I realized that a lot of different situations were just my patterns on repeat. And so finally, when that relationship ended, it was someone that I was head over heels in love with. He had his shit together. He didn't drink a lot. He was like on his path of growth, but I was in one of the darkest places of my life. I was really just in the peak of my partying and unhealthy habits. And I just remember lying to him about a lot of things. And so when we broke up, it just was so confronting. And I remember being so deep in this heartbreak, continuing to drink and numb. And one day looking in that mirror, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't keep living this way. Like it was so heavy and so dark. And so after that, I ended up just deciding, okay, I need to change my life. I stopped using substances. I went and sat with ayahuasca a couple of times, got even more clarity, took all the wisdom that I learned, and decided to just go all in on this healing journey. And then about 6 months later, I was at a music festival in Miami and I had this insane out of body experience. I drank too much that night, lost my keys, became really angry, so just disconnected from myself. And I remember my highest self looking down at me. And I remember hearing the words, Sophia, you have so much potential. Why do you continue putting yourself in these situations? You already know this is not good for you. And you have so many gifts to share with the world. What are you doing? And it was in that moment I looked over at my friend and I said to her, this is the last night I'm going to be drinking. I'm going to be sober after this. And that was October 21st of 2023. And here we are. I haven't had a sip of alcohol since. And quite literally every area of my life has changed since then.
I can't wait to dive into the changes that have been made in your life. But I'm curious because for anybody who is maybe in the period of their life where you used to be, where they are using alcohol as a way of numbing or gaining confidence, I'm curious when you were in the relationship and dating as well, what did alcohol do for you? Like, why did you have such a habit of having alcohol in your life?
I would say the biggest thing in relationships or dating in general when I was drinking, it was this false sense of confidence. It made me feel like I could be myself, even though it was so far from that, right? It was just this like crutch and this sense of liquid courage, which I think a lot of us drink for that social acceptance. And we drink for that. Okay, if I drink, I can put my walls down a little bit and I can be a little bit more vulnerable. And I really leaned on that, not only in relationships and partners, but with friendships as well. It was like, if I drink and I can keep up and I'm this social person and the life of the party, I'm going to be loved and accepted. And again, it was like this whole pattern replaying from childhood.
I deeply resonate with that. When I think back to the moments, the dates, even in the relationship where I would use alcohol, yeah, it was because I didn't think that I was enough as who I
Yes.
am. And I wasn't going to be liked for who I am, and I needed to be something different. I also remember alcohol being used in the relationship itself for connection
Yes. Oh my goodness.
because we couldn't connect. We couldn't have those deep conversations without alcohol. Because with alcohol, we can, like, all inhibitions go out the window. So I
Yeah.
can finally start to express or say whatever was on my heart because I was so afraid of being abandoned. So if I just get a little bit drunk, I won't care. And then I'll be
Yep.
able to say what I really want to say.
Exactly. It was also for me, like the intimacy aspect of a relationship. For me, it felt okay if I drink and I'm a little tipsy or a little bit loose, I can be more intimate and put my guard down. And like you said, it was like this false sense of connection because now sober dating and being intentionally with someone, oh my goodness, like you don't need alcohol to connect because that's just naturally there.
100%. The intimacy thing as well. Yeah, where we would get drunk and yeah, this false sense of connection. You've said it, that you've hit the nail on the head there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just trying to think where I'm going to go with this because there's so many different ways
I
to
know.
take this. Do I want to explore anything else before going into where you're at now? Yes, I do. I want to go into this question. So, around the time before when you were thinking about getting sober, like that moment where you were at the festival, and it made me think back to the my moment that I had as well. And I wouldn't say that I'm sober, but I'm definitely not someone who gets drunk anymore. I didn't even like being drunk. I hated being drunk. I don't know even
Yeah.
why I would do it. It was because I felt like, yeah, this confidence thing and not feeling enough as myself. And when I drink, I'm this different person. But I always felt so sick when I would
Oh,
drink. And it was on my 31st birthday that I had my turning point where it was very similar to yours. It's like, what am I doing with my life? I've just turned 31. It was on my 31st birthday, and I'm absolutely wasted and a mess, making an
yeah.
embarrassment of myself. And there was a guy there that I was dating, and I remember looking at his face, and he was looking at me like, what are you doing? Who is this person? And I felt ashamed. I felt shamed that I was now really drunk around him. And that shame I carried into the morning after. I'm like, I
Oh,
can't do
yeah.
this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And since then, I haven't been drunk. I've never been drunk. So I'm curious when you had that moment of realization, was there any fear that came up for you? There's something that you may be afraid to lose that if you were to stop drinking and start dating and being in relationships sober, were there any fears that came up?
Oh my gosh, 100%. There were so many fears because my entire identity was rooted in being the party girl. That was really all I knew. I didn't have hobbies outside of that, and I didn't know who I actually was. And so anytime I was connecting with men, with friends, that was the center of attention. That was what we revolved our world around. Like a lot of partners that I dated, we would party on the weekends. Anytime we'd go out on dates, it would be let's go get drinks. Same thing with friendships. It always revolved around alcohol and partying. And so when I had that realization, it was like, oh my gosh, my life is going to be over. Like, how am I going to make friends? Who am I even going to be? And what am I going to do in my free time? Am I going to have hobbies? Is my life just going to become this like boring drag of a life? And there were so many fears that came up because I truly didn't know anything other than that life.
Yeah.
And the other thing that just came to mind too is like that piece of acceptance and belonging. I never really felt like I belonged a lot, which is also why partying for me gave me that sense of community and belonging. I was terrified that if I let go of that, I wouldn't ever find that again, which all of it became so untrue, right? It's a lot of the ideas that we hear of, oh, sobriety is boring or you're going to lose all these friends. There's truth to some of it, but sobriety is the furthest thing from boring. It truly unlocked so much opportunity and beauty and health and clarity. There's nothing like it, truly.
Yes, deeply resonate. It's very ingrained in my culture from coming from Wales, Welsh people, they drink a lot.
Yes,
And
I've
like you
heard
said,
that.
yes, we do. It's very ingrained in the culture to the point where I remember going for a family meal and my grandfather is going around the table. What are you drinking? What are you drinking? What are you drinking? And I said to him, oh, I don't want anything tonight. I've got an early call tomorrow for work and I'm not going to drink. And he looked at me like I had two heads. He's like, absolutely not. You are drinking. It's a family meal. What are you drinking? And he was like this pressure to drink.
Wow.
And before I knew it, I had a pint of cider in front of me that I didn't want. So And
Yeah.
I also had the same thoughts. Like, what is my life going to look like if I make this decision to not drink anymore? And I was afraid of what people would think of me. If they go, oh, we're going to go for drinks, we're going to go for rooftop cocktails, or we're going to go for a glass of wine. And if I was to say no, what reaction would I get from them? And the
Yeah.
same with dating. If I was going to go on a date, because I do practice sobriety, especially when we're first starting, because I don't want to lose my, what's the word? I don't want to lose my, oh my God, what's the word I'm looking for?
Authenticity
It's so
or
early in the morning. Also, yeah, authenticity, but awareness. I didn't want to lose
yeah.
my awareness. But then again, I would get afraid. What are they going to think of me? Will they even like me if I said that I'm not drinking? Are they going to think that I'm too stuck up or whatever? So I remember all those thoughts coming into my head. So tell us a little bit about what life is like sober, because I'm so curious when you talk about the health and the clarity and the confidence in the authenticity and the fears that you were fearing were absolutely not true. So give us an insight. What is on the other side of sobriety?
Oh my goodness. I'm like, where do I even begin, honestly? The first thing I would say that really changed for me was my health. I was always the sick friend growing up. I had Lyme's disease at a very young age and constantly struggled with a really weak immune system. And so partying and drinking for me just doubled that, right? I was just always sick, always had a cold. I never focused on going to the gym or moving my body. Like for me, it was always the excuse of I don't have time, but all of my time was wrapped up in partying and going out. So I ended up getting really healthy, really strong. The second thing is that it really took the rose colored glasses off and I was able to see, okay, these are my people. And I built really deep, vulnerable relationships versus like the surface level, let's go out and have a drink kind of friendships. And I also noticed like who was actually there to support me and who was just there to have fun with me. The next thing I would say is it really unlocked this like inspiration and creativity within me. As a little girl, I was always so creative. I was an entrepreneur out of the womb and I had so many ideas. But when I was drinking and partying, I would try to start a business, I would try to do something and I would never follow through because again, like I didn't have the energy and the capacity to do. And so getting sober, like I fully locked in on everything, right? I started my business, I launched my podcast, and I'm the most like passionate and excited that I've ever been because I'm sober. And then I would say like the absolute biggest thing that it really unlocked for me is the confidence in sharing my voice. I was always so terrified to speak up. And I shared in the beginning, like I was too much, too loud, too emotional. And I always saw my vulnerability as a weakness. And getting sober is when I actually started to share my story on social media. And so getting on there and sharing my story, like you said before, the shame and the embarrassment and the guilt, I carried so much of that for years. And talking and speaking my story and my message liberated a lot of that shame. And then launching my podcast was just like next level healing and healing the relationship with my voice and like learning of, wow, I don't have to keep all of this to myself anymore. And the parts that I used to hide and numb with alcohol are now the parts that are what make me unique. Like those are the parts that actually now, like my too muchness is my superpower. I truly believe that. Like my passion, my intensity, like the things that are make me are the best parts about me. And so, like, I really feel like sobriety unlocked that key to owning that and bringing it out into the world because now when I share my voice, it gives other women permission to then share theirs. And it's just like this big, beautiful co creation and like community. Yeah, community healing. It's so beautiful.
And what I hear is that being sober allowed you to unlock that creativity, which allowed you to start your podcast, which is amazing, by the way. I absolutely love your podcast,
Thank
The Her Journey
you.
Home. And all the ideas that you had that were bubbling under the surface, that small voice that was whispering to you about your potential was now starting to rise up. But I'm sure the journey wasn't just from A to B, right? It was all the things in between. So talk to us a little bit about that. When you've made that decision, right, I'm going sober, enough is enough. What happened during? that time before you got to unlocking your voice and starting the podcast, were there any tools or modalities that really supported you? Were there any relapses you went through that really taught you something? Give us an insight into that journey.
Oh, such a good question. So it really, the first, I would say 3 to 4 months were really hard. This was where I was just going through a lot of grief and loss and this grief of losing an old identity while also grieving friendships and pieces of my life that I thought would be around forever. That was really difficult. It was like, wow, I really thought that this person would be in my wedding one day, or I really thought that we had a deeper connection than this, but we didn't. And it was just a lot of shedding and unraveling and realizing that my life was going to be different and allowing myself to just sit through the emotions because the old version of me didn't do that. Anytime I was feeling grief or sadness or pain, I would just go and drink and party and I would forget about it temporarily, but I was just burying it deeper and deeper. And so those first months were really just like letting everything come to the surface. And it was a lot. Like the emotions were pretty intense. And then I would say after that, I started to turn the page and I started to feel better because I was doing Pilates and going to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. And so I started to feel more in my body. I was starting to build confidence. I was like, oh, I actually really like how I feel. I have energy and I have mental clarity and I'm waking up without a debilitating hangover. And I was just like, wow, maybe there's some truth to this like sobriety being amazing. And then I started to put myself into spaces where I was meeting other like-minded people. So I was going to like business meetups and wellness events and retreats in different places in the world. And I started to just feel like, okay, maybe there's a lot more than I thought there was in this sober world. And then I got into like really deep healing. So I started to do meditations. I started to do shadow work. I got into EFT tapping, which as was my absolute favorite modality. And I started to really rewire a lot of the beliefs of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of the life that I want, I'll never find love. There was just so many deep rooted beliefs from past and childhood conditioning that I started to rewire. And little by little, I got to a place of feeling more safe within myself. And then one day I had a business before the one I started here. And I one day had this idea, okay, I need to share my sobriety journey. And I was terrified. Like my hands were shaking. I was sweaty, like sick to my stomach. And I just posted the video on Instagram and it was me talking. And I was so scared. And it was from that point on that I just started to show up. And it was like, okay, it's like riding a bike, right? Like you show up, you do it, you're scared, but you just keep on putting in the reps and building that confidence. And then I started going live on Instagram, building more confidence. And then one day I was sitting in my apartment in Miami over a year ago and my podcast idea dropped in and it was like, you need to start a podcast now. And at that time, I was podcasting with a friend and I just told her, like, look, I have to go on my own journey. I love you, but I have to do this. And then her journey home was born and it just became the platform that fully unleashed my voice.
Wow, such a journey. Thank you for
God.
sharing those modalities. I'm definitely going to dive into EFT tapping because that is your bread and butter. But first, I'm curious because you mentioned earlier that you were anxiously attached, like a lot of us here, and noticing how alcohol was supporting you, protecting you from feeling the fear of abandonment and becoming someone that did not feel not enough and confident, etc. So I'm curious, how did you deal with those particular things once you started to go sober and maybe started to date again as well, and the fear of abandonment? And it sounds like everything came up to the surface for you that you had to confront. And maybe you didn't date right away. You can let us know how that journey looked like for you. But if you can give us an insight into that, maybe one of the first dates you went on sober and all those fears and insecurities that would start to rise up to the surface that we typically identify with anxious attachment. How did you handle those tricky little things?
Oh gosh, it was really interesting. So I actually took about a year or longer before I even started dating because I knew that my pattern in the past was getting right back into a relationship. And so I never actually gave myself the time and the space to actually confront the things I needed to and heal. And so I kept repeating the patterns, as I said earlier. So after about a year, I built a lot of safety within myself and like sitting with the discomfort. But I remember the first couple of dates I went on and the first couple of people that I actually started to get close with, anytime that I would feel those patterns starting to arise, or I'd feel that, oh my gosh, I'm going to be abandoned, they're going to leave me, I allowed myself to feel it instead of running away or trying to numb through, like I said, coping, alcohol, or something else. And I used my EFT tapping to help guide me through those moments of I am safe, everything's going to be okay, he's not walking away. But I remember this one particular instance that really triggered me. And I was seeing this guy for about 2 months and it was going really fast. But we had this like immediate connection. We had a lot of similarities. Our birthdays were like a day apart. There was just a lot of like instant attraction and chemistry. But I noticed about a month in that it wasn't going to work because it was very much like him, let's move in together. Let's do this like within 2 months. And I've been in relationships like that where it's just like a quick burn and then something happens and it doesn't work out. But I remember one night he said to me, we were like in the middle of an argument and he just left. And that was like my biggest trigger. When a guy like doesn't communicate that he's going to walk away, or hey, look, I'm going to go outside for 30 minutes to just walk and get my head on straight. He just left. And I literally texted him and I said, don't come back. That is an absolute boundary that we do not cross. And we had talked about this prior as well. If we're going to be in an argument, which we shouldn't even be fighting like this 2 months in, but if we're in a fight, let's just give each other space. But the second someone just walks out and doesn't communicate, I can't be with someone like that. And so it really triggered that abandonment wound. And I just had to sit with myself after that. And of course, I ended things and we walked away. But it did give me that sense of, okay, I'm so much more aware now of my patterns. And I know the things, I know my triggers, and I'm able to actually guide myself and sit with myself through these things. And for me, the most important thing now with any type of relationship is communication. It's we need to talk about this before we even get there so that we know, okay, when this arises, we're not just going to walk away and cause something even deeper.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, and
Oh.
I love that being sober allowed you to have that sense of clarity and confidence to follow through on
To
that.
walk away because old me would have went back again and again, and I will say I did go back once after just the first time because I was like, "Okay, I don't wanna be the type that's just bye," because I also have a tendency to do that as well, to protect myself, and there were a lot of good things, so I was like, "Let me give this one more shot," but then it got worse, and I was like, "Okay, no, like, I'm good. This doesn't no, it's not good for either of us."
Which is fair, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing is like sobriety really supported you in being able to move through those triggers. And I always say to everybody I meet, the triggers are like our best friend. I know that
Yeah.
they're uncomfortable, but they really allow those dormant wounds and beliefs that we have been conditioned, that we hold within our attachment system to be activated. And when we are in a space, a healthy space, where we are working on our self-worth and our confidence, we are able to face them head on and actually follow through with them, which is what I heard about your journey. Is yeah, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, but it happened again. And that line was crossed. Now I'm taking action on it. Whereas before we would fall into those patterns of self-abandonment, keep going back to them and drink to just forget the fact that we're ignoring ourselves and we're just trying to
Yeah.
be in this relationship because it's better than being alone or it's better than being abandoned. And another thing that I
Mhm.
always say is, I hope that you have your worst fears realized because then you will realize that it's actually not as frightening as you think it is.
Oh my gosh, so true. Wow. And something else too that popped into my mind is like when I started dating sober, it was interesting. The first couple of guys I dated were me before I got sober. So I actually started to attract guys that were anxiously attached when I was healing my attachment wounds. And so it was like a really big mirror of, whoa, okay, how am I going to handle this now? It was wild.
That actually happened to me too.
It
I
was,
remember
and I
that.
was like, oh my gosh, this is how I was with my ex. Like, now I see what he went through. It was insane.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was such a interesting and unique experience to be on the other side of it as well. It's like, is this how they felt when I was
Yeah.
coming at them? And I'm like, this man is so insecure and he's so like just sucking my energy.
Exactly, that's how I felt. I was like, "Oh my gosh." I like, the guy that I was seeing that I was just talking about said something to me. I guess everyone just leaves me or something like that, and it was the exact thing I said to my ex over 2 years ago when he broke up with me, and it was just like this full circle moment of, like, "Whoa."
Oh my God, I'm so glad that you brought this up because I remember those experiences myself, and it can be quite confronting, but it also allowed me to drop into compassion for my past self.
Oh, I just got full body chills. Mm.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this guy and I'm having judgments. I couldn't help it. I was having these judgments and I was thinking some things because I was feeling so confronted with this behavior. But it wasn't about him when I unpacked it. It was about how I felt about myself when I was in my anxious attachment. So not only was I able to then be compassionate with this person that was in front of me that was saying the things like, oh, everybody leaves me. And I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, just grow a pair. And I had to confront myself in the way that I was presenting with this person. It's like, no, how would I want to talk to this person with compassion and empathy, knowing that I also was in that space as well? It's so interesting.
It is so insane, and I'm so glad you said that because it did do that for me too. I was like, "Oh my gosh, now I see where I was coming from before." It was like this such a deep wound, and I even said to him, I'm like, "Look, like I will always like have respect for you, but you have to go on this journey for you. Like I had to go for my own journey, and you have to fall back in love with yourself first because that can't be what you want in a relationship, like that person to come in and just be that person that does everything and saves you and is your other half. Like, no, you have to do that yourself first. Oh,
100%, 100%. And as you're working on your self-worth, I also remember having moments where I would be on dates with guys and I wouldn't drink because that's a rule and a boundary I set with myself that I don't drink at least on the first 3 dates until we get a bit more familiar with each other. And again, like I said, I never get drunk anymore. But then I remember going on a date with a guy and he's having his Dutch courage. Fine. But I chose not to. I chose to have a soft drink. And it might have come from nervousness, doesn't really matter. But the way that he responded to me not having a drink was like a red flag,
that tells you everything.
where he was like, "You're not having a drink." Oh, and I can't even remember exactly what he said, but I remember how I felt. I felt
Yep.
disrespected. I
Yep.
felt he was trying to do some sort of power play and he was arrogant. And I was like, absolutely not. I already know that I am not having a second date with this guy just from the way that he responded to me. So I
Yep.
will always remember that interesting decision that I made to not drink, being able to bring out this side of this person, which I have deemed a red flag. So I'm curious about when you started to date again sober, were there any red flags that you can really see more clearly now than maybe you would have brushed to the side when you were drinking?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's so interesting that you talked about that, about how his response brought that up in you, because that's actually really what I looked for before even going on first dates. So in the past, when I was drinking, red flags were like green flags to me. It was like, oh, no big deal, whatever. I'm just going to keep on going, even when my intuition was like, what are you doing? And so when I started to date sober, I was on the dating apps. I was on Hinge for a little while. And in the very beginning, I was nervous, really scared to be like, hey, I don't drink, because a lot of times I would get those responses of, oh, that's boring or that's lame or you don't drink. And those would immediately be the people where I'm like, okay, I'm not going on a date with you. And so it took me a lot of confidence to finally be like, actually, I don't drink, but if you want to go for a walk on the beach, if you want to grab coffee, if you want to go on a hike, like more than open to doing that. And what I started to notice is exactly what you said. Their responses said everything to me. And so there was a lot of guys where I could just tell, made me feel really uncomfortable. Like I just wouldn't have felt safe in their presence. And it felt like disrespectful. Like it was like, oh, okay, like this is something that's so important to me. And you don't respect that. So, nope, not even a chance. But then there was also guys that were like, "That's so incredible. I wanna know more," or "That's really admirable. Like, how did you do that?" And those were always the guys that I would go on the first dates with. So, I would say, yeah, there were so many times where I would go on a date with them, and it was great because we just got to go deeper, and there was no, like nothing between us. And even the guys that I would go on dates with sometimes wouldn't drink because 'cause they're like, "Oh, no, like, you're not drinking, I'm not gonna drink either," and that was such a green flag because 'cause I'm like, "Wow, amazing." But there were definitely a couple of red flags where I was like, "Yeah, I'm sober." This one guy in particular, hilarious. He tried to make this whole story of like how he stopped using drugs and how he was sober. And about 2 months into us dating, caught him like doing drugs at a club that we were at and tried to play off the whole thing. And of course, I immediately cut it off. But like those are things I probably wouldn't have caught if I was drinking. Like it just would have been this thing that we're probably doing together and it would have just been another toxic relationship.
Yep. Yeah. And what I'm hearing is like there's so many benefits would be the word to going sober, not only for health and all the kind of this the ones that we already know about going sober, but when we understand what anxious attachment feels like and is like in our life, it sounds like when you approach dating sober, it really is an opportunity and an invitation to stick to your own boundaries, to be able to remember your self-worth, because I know a lot of us, and no judgment here, I have been there where we have gone with all intentions to not drink on a date or to not do this or to not sleep with them, whatever it is. And in the moment, we really like them, we want it to go well, and we overstep and we break our boundaries and our promises with ourselves. And we can, it's almost like that a different type of hangover the next day because we know that we've just gone into self-abandonment. So it sounds like it's a really great tool to support you to stick to your boundaries and stick to your standards of what you're looking for in a partner as well. So I want everybody to realize that it's not a clean cut, okay, this is all like a perfect way of being, but there may be moments where there will be episodes of self-abandonment, and it's how you relate to yourself and how you pick yourself back up after the relapse, should we say,
Yes.
and how you then learn from that. So I always, because I've been there way too many times where I had all the intentions.
Yep.
I'm curious if you were there and how you handled it.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. There's so many times where I've gotten to a place and I'm just like, "Oh, I'm not gonna do this," or "I'm gonna wait this long," or I'm just like, I set these boundaries for myself and then I cross them and get into this place of like shame and, "Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that and I should have been more strict with myself." But you said something really important is as you're healing and you have more awareness, you pick yourself up quicker. You don't allow yourself to fester and sit in that shame. Whereas years ago, I would have let it take over my entire life. Like I would have been an absolute just wreck for so long and it would have affected every area of my life. But in sobriety, with this awareness and on this path that I'm on, it's like when these types of things happen, it doesn't knock me down for very long. Like I get back up, dust my shoulders off, and I'm like, okay, what can I actually learn from that? And what wisdom can I take with me into the next situation or relationship? So, absolutely, it still happens. And I think like I want the women listening to know like it's unrealistic to expect that when you're on your healing journey, your triggers just magically go away or the things just like everything will be perfect, right? You're still going to have situations where you may not act or show up in the way that you thought you would. And that's okay. Be compassionate and gentle with yourself because we're human, but you won't stay in the low for as long as you would have previously.
Absolutely. What a beautiful message. Thank you for sharing that with us, Sophia.
Yes.
So, if someone listening is sober curious and wants to start dating sober because they're resonating deeply with your story and the things that we're talking about today, but they're also scared that dating will start to feel boring or that they will be judged and all the things will come up to the surface that may be a bit too overwhelming to handle, what are some gentle ways that someone can start to introduce sober dating into their life? And yeah, what would you say to them?
Oh, such a good question. I would say the first thing that you want to do before you even start to date is get really like clear on your values and the things that light you up, like the things that bring you energy and excitement, and start dating yourself first. That's what I did. And it makes so much difference. Give yourself all the things that you're looking for in someone else. Give yourself the words of affirmation, buy yourself the flowers, take yourself on dinner and lunch dates. That for me built that foundation so that when I started dating, I knew what I wanted and what I deserved and I'm worthy of. And so then when you start dating, start to put yourself in places where there's going to be people that have similar interests and passions. So if you like working out, go to new workout classes, maybe go on hikes or go to like groups in your city. Or if you like certain, let's say you like making pottery, right? Go to a pottery class because you would be so surprised like how many men are doing other things other than just going out to the bars and the clubs. And I also want to make it a very big point that like the people that you're meant to connect with are not going to be out at bar. You're not probably not going to meet your husband out at a bar or club, right? Because you're trying to be sober and you're trying to do new things that nourish you and support you on your journey. So try to put yourself in environments that are actually conducive to the path that you're on. And then I would just say, really understand that no is enough of an explanation. You don't owe anyone an explanation of why you're not drinking or why you are embracing sobriety. And so the people that genuinely respect and support you won't question that. They'll be there to support you. And so when you are starting to put yourself out there and dating, give them a couple of other options. Tell them the things that you enjoy. Let them know, hey, look, I don't drink, but I would absolutely love to go to the beach or go grab a coffee and have a cool conversation. And you will notice, like we said before, just from their response, whether it's someone you want to go on a date with. And then the last thing I'll say is just really take it slow and trust your gut and your intuition literally more than anything else. If you feel like something is off or they're giving you a weird vibe or energy, trust that because you're sober and it will never lead you in the wrong direction. And just truly embrace the things that excite you and you're going to end up meeting and connecting with someone that has similar interests and passions.
You make so many good points. The first one, being able to not over explain yourself. How many of us do this?
Oh gosh, so
Where
many.
we overgive and we overshare and we feel like we have to now give our whole life story to this person because they've just asked, why are we not drinking? And I
Yes.
remember thinking like, oh gosh, okay, I need to tell them everything because I need to help them understand and I don't want them to go away and blah, blah, blah. No, we're not doing that anymore. We can just be like, I'm just not drinking. We don't have to now
Doesn't
spill
serve
our
me.
guts up for someone that we just met. Or maybe we
Yeah,
want to say, I'm not going to share everything with you today, but the more I get to know you, I would love to share more. We can
absolutely.
keep it so simple. Or yeah. So that was the first point is don't feel like you need to now share your whole life with this person that
Yep.
you've just met about why you're not drinking. And the second and probably the most important one of all point that you made is date yourself for a
Date yourself.
while. Oh my
Yes.
God. Like this changed my life because what I noticed in my own journey was the amount of I was down here, like on the ground, and they were up here on the pedestal. And the way
Yes.
that I was operating in dating and relationships was all about pleasing them, was all about getting them to like me, was all about what made them comfortable. And I would make myself so uncomfortable as a result. But also because of the anxious attachment conditioning, I didn't really understand what it was like to prioritize myself, to find pleasure in enjoying my own company. I didn't enjoy my own company to the point where I would fill my schedule with friends that I didn't really want to hang out with, dates I didn't really want to go on because I was so afraid of being alone.
Mm.
And I was binging books and podcasts and all sorts of stuff at this point. And there was one particular book, and it's called Pussy. And I know
Yes, I've read it. It's so good.
yeah, the title throws you off a little bit, and it's called Pussy of Reclamation. I've got it right here. It's by Regina Thomas Howell.
Yep.
And I
Amazing.
still got it on my bookshelf because it really was a book that changed my life. And what she taught me was the act of pleasure, something that I really didn't have an intimate relationship with. And this is not about sex or physical pleasure. It is about what you just described, taking yourself out for a meal, buying yourself flowers, wearing perfume for the sake of wearing it for you. I wouldn't do any of those
Yeah.
things unless I was doing it for someone else.
Same.
I wouldn't
Mhm.
cook, I wouldn't buy nice flowers, I wouldn't wear nice things unless it was for someone else. So I
Yeah.
went on this whole journey of I'm gonna date myself and I'm going to show up as if I'm in a relationship because that's what made sense to me back then, but I'm in a relationship with myself and I'm gonna
Yes.
treat myself the way that I would treat someone else. And that then turned into this is how I deserve to be treated. This is not what I expect, because I don't like the word expect, but this is what my standards are. This is what I desire from my life partner, from the person that I'm dating. This is the respect that I deserve. This is how I would love for them to show up, because this is how I'm showing up for
Yep.
myself. And that is how then we start to build up that self-worth.
Absolutely. I could not have said it better myself. Like when you start to date yourself and you're like, wow, I'm so worthy of this. And like, I love myself, you will literally not accept anything less. Like my standards now, I'm like, no, like I deserve respect and I deserve to find a partner that I feel safe with and I deserve that. And it's like, you're just like, no, I'm good by myself. So why am I going to accept this like half-assed BS that's out there? No, you just won't. And so it's like, date yourself before anything else.
Oh my God, you made such a good point. Why would I accept this half-assed, bare minimum breadcrumbing, love bombing
No.
when I have built such an incredible life for myself? I got goosebumps. Literally, I've got
Oh,
leg goosebumps.
it's like,
Because
why would I?
yes, and when you create the life that you want to create for yourself, that is so amazing, that fe lights you up, that feels so good, you will just naturally not accept anything less. Because unless they are contributing to your life, not adding or completing, but contributing because you've already done that for yourself, then you will automatically be saying, this is not for me. Oh,
Exactly. And I always looked at relationships of, okay, this person's going to come in, they're going to complete me. And now I look at it as I'm a whole human. I am already fulfilled and on my journey. So whoever comes into my life, we elevate one another, right? Like we bring life to one another, we motivate, we inspire. It's not this, I need you to complete me energy. And so it's like everything shifts when you just fall back in love with yourself.
yeah, it's no longer the be all and end all. A relationship
Oh,
is no longer the thing that you have to achieve in life. And I know
yeah.
I had to deal with that confronting part where I felt so incomplete without a partner. I felt like my relationship status defined who I was. And if I
Yep.
was single, then I was discarded, I wasn't wanted, I wasn't chosen, I wasn't loved. It's just not true when you build a life for yourself that feels so fulfilling and complete. But it's not just the external, it's the internal as well. When you feel good about being in your own company, that was
Yeah.
something I really had to work on. Like, how can I be in my own company and not? And what it was, really, I was craving connection, but
Yep.
I was thinking that I wanted connection with others. That was how I was filling my cup. But actually, what I was really craving for was connection with myself and connection with God. So I won't go too much into my journey because there's so much of it already on this podcast, but that is what I had to understand about what it means to feel connected.
Oh my gosh, so good. I could not resonate more. Like truly, that was also my journey.
On that
Um,
note, and I want to come back to your bread and butter modality for what you
yeah.
teach people, and that is EFT tapping. So, in simple terms, for anybody who's never heard of EFT, what does it mean and why are you so passionate about it?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it dates back all the way to ancient Chinese medicine. And the way I like to describe it for people that have never heard of it is like acupuncture, but without the needles, because we're quite literally tapping on the acupressure points on the body, which then stimulates the energy. It helps to rewire limiting beliefs, as I mentioned earlier, and to regulate the nervous system, which also means expanding your capacity to be able to hold more. So when I was using EFT to process grief, sadness, fears, anxieties, it is so incredible for all of those things. And the reason why I fell so in love with EFT is because it's such a beautiful modality that you can put in your back pocket to use anywhere and like anytime, anywhere. So for example, like I'll be on the way to the airport and I'm feeling like, okay, I'm nervous I'm going to miss my flight, right? And I'm like doing my EFT in the back of an Uber. It's not something where you have to be like in a safe space with your eyes closed, dropping into your body. Like you can do EFT anytime, anywhere, and it'll bring you back into your body and ground you. And it's insane how much your energy shifts in just a couple of rounds of EFT. And so for me, the way that it really transformed my own life is I started to tap with Brad Yates. He's a big YouTube guy, like one of the pioneers of tapping. And I started tapping with him a couple of years ago, and I just noticed these major shifts in my confidence and the way that I would show up in my business. Like I was so much more confident getting on my camera. I was so much more confident doing my podcast. And then I ended up taking a really deep dive 6-month certification program where I learned like really deep about the history and the science and all the things of EFT. And it just really connected like, wow, now I understand it on a deeper level. And I've just seen so many of my clients like such profound shifts in like their anxiety levels and the way they show up for business and their relationships. Wow, it's really powerful.
I agree. I don't do it every day, but I definitely do it with others. And I know about Brad Yates, yeah, absolutely. How I see EFT is it's like combining the mind and the body. Would that be correct in saying because you're tapping, so you're bringing the body into inviting the body into this experience, but we're also like repeating affirmations to ourselves. Would that be right?
Yep. 100%. So it's actually a blend of cognitive and somatic therapy together because the somatic, the body, and then the cognitive, the mind. And so you're literally rewiring limiting beliefs and also working with the nervous system, which is so powerful.
Wow. And you would say this is probably the most transformational modality that you have used in your journey to support you to heal anxious attachment and to stay sober.
For me personally, yes, I would say EFT is extremely powerful when done correctly and just in consistency, right? Anything with consistency. I would say for really deep rooted trauma, EFT is good, but there's also modalities like EMDR, which I've heard is absolutely incredible. And somatic therapy in general, I would say is extremely powerful as well. So I wouldn't say like EFT is like the best modality in the entire world for everyone. And I think that goes for any modality, right? Like it's varies person to person and what you've been through and what you're looking to heal, but I would say EFT is so good for just about anyone that's navigating their healing journey.
Absolutely. Just something for the toolbox that, like you said, you
Yes.
can put in your back pocket. You can do in the bathroom before you date. Turns
Yes,
up.
there you go.
Yeah,
So
amazing. And if someone is brand new to EFT and wants to give it a go, do you have something like a resource that you could offer them?
absolutely. So I do have a couple of resources. I have my free download, which is essentially a meditation and an EFT tapping for connecting to your message and your voice. If you're wanting to post on social media and you have fears of judgment, or you're wanting to record a podcast episode, I also have a lot of free EFT tappings on my Instagram. So I do every other day tappings on my stories. And so you can come on there and tap along with me. You can also go to YouTube. Brad Yates is an amazing resource. And also, I have 60-minute sessions as well if you're looking to explore the deeper layers of EFT. Because for me, it's really important to have a place where you can land and feel safe to process the emotions that come up in the process. Because you can do EFT by yourself in your living room or in your bedroom, but having someone there to actually navigate what comes up is really powerful.
Yeah, and I watch your tapping on IG stories and I love them. It's so beautiful. And you do have a lovely voice. So just listening
Oh,
to you
thank you.
while I'm tapping along with you is just so lovely. So all of those things will be in the show notes. So if you are really curious about EFT tapping, you can go ahead and grab that and add it to your toolbox. Sophia said it's not the be all and end all. It is a really amazing addition to all the other things that may be in your toolbox on your journey. So, just wrapping this up, Sophia, this incredible conversation, because I feel like we could go on and on. But
Same.
I want to just end with a couple more questions of just really just wrapping up this whole conversation and message up in a beautiful bow. I'm curious, what do you feel like when after now you've been reflecting in this episode of all the things, of all the ways that becoming sober has really supported you in your life and changed your life, what would you say is the best thing about being sober that you experience in your life?
Hands down, being able to feel safe in being me and sharing my voice. Like that for me, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on healing. I became addicted to the healing and courses and certifications and mentors. But sobriety unlocked within me this authentic code, this like liberation to be who I've always been meant to be. And I've reconnected with that little girl within me who never felt safe enough. And being able to now share it with the world and impact other women and give them permission to be themselves and to share their story, like hands down, that's the best part of sobriety, truly.
Wow. And is there any final words that you would like the women to hear? If you could have a message that you wish more women knew about being sober, or if they are battling with anxious attachment right now, and there's something that you want them to know in this moment, would there be anything that you would say to them?
Absolutely. I would tell them that if there's been a little voice in their head that's been whispering that life may be better sober, or that there's so much potential within them, or that they're meant to share their gifts and all of their magic and uniqueness with this world, there's a reason for that voice. And to just start to get curious with it. You don't have to make any radical decisions overnight. You don't have to overhaul your entire life. Like, I think we think of sobriety and it's okay, got to change everything. Be gentle with yourself. You're human. It's going to come with challenges, but if there's a little voice and you know that you're meant for so much more, get curious with it. And just know that what is on the other side of that is so freaking beautiful. Like, I can't even begin to explain. Like, it gives me full body chills. And I just want every single woman to know that you are so worthy of becoming who you've always been meant to be and remembering who you were before you learned who you had to be safe and to be loved and accepted. You are so worthy of the love you desire, the life you desire, the health, the freedom. Like, you're so worthy. So just trust that inner voice and start to get curious with it.
I love that. Love that. Being compassionate, being gentle, one step at a time. I
Yes.
had to do the one step at a time theory in my own healing journey because it feels like a lot. It feels overwhelming. Where do I start? And just also, thank you so much for sharing that beautiful, inspiring message. On the back of that, just want everyone to know that you don't have to do this alone.
No.
It's not something you have to do alone. There are so many people out there that, especially in the online world, that have walked the journey that you want to walk on, that is so willing to walk with you. And Sophia is one of those women. Go and follow her on Instagram because she's so inspiring and I can really feel your love for women. I really feel your passion. And I know that you are holding all of our hands on this journey. So if you're thinking, where the hell do I start? Just start there. Just start surrounding yourself, whether it be physically or digitally, with people who will inspire you, will lift you up, will support
Yeah.
you on your journey, and will guide you as well. Put yourself in those communities,
Yeah. Community.
digitally and Community really is everything. So go and find your people. They are out there, I promise you.
They are. They absolutely are.
Yeah. All right, love. So, how can listeners get more in touch with you? I know that we have your Instagram that's tagged below. Your podcast, Her Journey Home, is just a phenomenal resource. Are there any other ways that people can know more about you?
Yeah, those are the two biggest ways. So you can listen to Her Journey Home on Apple or Spotify. That's where you'll really get in depth of like my journey, and you'll get to hear the voices of so many beautiful women all around the world. And yeah, my Instagram is the best way currently to connect with me. So just drop me a DM. Don't be shy. Come in with literally anything. My DMs are always open. And like you said, it's just so important to have community. Find your people and lean in, because you don't have to suffer in silence. Please just know that.
Beautiful. Sophia, thank you so much for being on the podcast, for
Mm.
offering your heart, offering your inspiring journey and story. And I'm just so grateful, so honored to have you here with me today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. This was such a beautiful conversation, and I'm so grateful that we got to connect.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode on the Relationship Rehab Podcast. If you really enjoyed this episode, it would really mean a lot to me if you was to share this episode with a friend who really needs to hear what has been talked about today, and also to rate and review this podcast. Hit that subscribe or follow button so you don't miss any new episodes coming out. And as always, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode.